مباشرة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has received his French counterpart, Jean-Noël Barrot, here in Algiers as part of his official visit to our country. And the Speaker of the People's National Assembly, Brahim Boghali, and the President of the Arab Interparliamentary Union have co-chaired a meeting in Uzbekistan on the consultation and coordination on the draft emergency item to be presented during the 150th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union. The Polisario Front representative to the UN and coordinator with the MINURSO, Mohammed Sidi Omar, has reiterated the Sahrawis' attachment to Western Sahara's right to self-determination and independence. Several Palestinians, including children, were killed in bombardments carried out at dawn by the Israeli occupation in Khan Yunis. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has received his French counterpart, Jean-Noël Barrot, here in Algiers as part of his official visit to our country. The two ministers discussed several important topics set on the agenda of the presidents of the two countries, aimed at diffusing the tensions and have recently characterized Algeria-France relations. The visit by the French Foreign Minister follows a phone call between President Abdelmadjid Tebboune and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron on March 31st. To prepare for this visit, Mr. Barrot had previously spoken with the Minister of Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf last Thursday. The President of the People's National Assembly, Brahim Boghali, and the President of the Arab Interparliamentary Union has chaired a meeting in Uzbekistan dedicated to consultation and coordination on the draft emergency item to be presented during the 150th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union. Masoud Sharfi.
The meeting provided a key opportunity to align Arab and African positions on urgent issues, especially the Palestinian cause, allowing Algeria to reaffirm its role as a central player in fostering Arab-African coordination and building consensus in multilateral parliamentary fora. This highlights Algeria's commitment to just causes and reaffirms its position as a reliable international mediator. Later on, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Boghali, participated to the coordination meeting of the heads of geopolitical groups held as part of the 150th IPU Assembly in his capacity as President of the Arab Geopolitical Group. The meeting, chaired by IPU President Mr. Toulia Aksen and attended by the Secretary General Mr. Changung, addressed various aspects for organizing the 150th IPU General Assembly, as well as key issues set on its agenda. The participation of Mr. Boghali in this coordination meeting reflects Algeria's unwavering commitment to consolidating its position as a strategic partner within the international parliamentary system. The IPU, as one of the world's leading parliamentary organizations, strive to unify the efforts of parliaments on shared concerns and works towards achieving justice and sustainable development at both regional and international levels. Algeria is strengthening Arab-African complementarity through continued support for consensus-based positions and its commitment to promote initiatives that unify views closer at the service of oppressed people, foremost among them the Palestinian cause. Meanwhile, Mr. Bughali met with his Bahraini counterpart, Ahmed bin Salman Al Musalim, during the 150th IPU Assembly. The two men expressed satisfaction at the strong relations existing between Algeria and Bahrain and praised the constructive parliamentary cooperation between their institutions. During the meeting, Mr. Bughali highlighted Algeria's growing role within the IPU, particularly its effort to strengthen coordination between Arab and African geopolitical groups, and emphasized the importance of the Arab-African support for draft resolutions and initiatives, notably those addressing the Palestinian cause and the ongoing Israeli aggression, urging more parliamentary diplomacy and greater exchanges between the two countries. Mr. Al-Musalim, for his part, expressed Bahrain's support for any initiative or proposal that serves common Arab causes, particularly Palestine, and stressed the importance of boosting trade and economic cooperation between Algeria and Bahrain.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the OPEC Plus countries have met virtually to review global market conditions and outlook. OPEC Plus previously announced voluntary adjustments in April and November 2023. Mariam Barshi has the details.
In view of the continuing healthy market fundamentals and the positive market outlook, and in accordance with the decision to start a gradual and flexible return to the 2.2 million barrels per day voluntary adjustment, starting from April 1st, 2025, the 8 participating countries decided to implement a production adjustment of 411,000 barrels per day, equivalent to 3 monthly increments in May 2025. This comprises the increment originally planned for May in addition to 2 monthly increments. The gradual increases may be paused or reversed depending on the evolving market conditions. This flexibility will allow the group to continue to support oil's market stability. The 8 OPEC Plus countries also noted that this measure will provide an opportunity for the participating countries to accelerate their compensation. They reaffirmed their commitment to the voluntary production adjustment agreed at the 53rd Joint Ministerial Monitoring Committee (GMMC) meeting on April 3, 2024. They also confirmed the intention to fully compensate any overproduced volume since January 2024 and to submit updated front-loaded compensation plans to the OPEC Secretariat by April 15, 2025, which will be posted on the Secretariat's website. The 8 OPEC Plus countries will hold monthly meetings to review market conditions, conformity and compensation. They will meet on the 5th of May to decide on June production levels. Let's note that the Algerian Minister of State in charge of energy mines and renewable energies, Mohamed Al-Qab, took part in the 59th meeting of the Joint Ministerial Monitoring Committee, GMMC, for OPEC and non-OPEC countries, held via video conference.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The Algerian national airline Air Algérie carried out its inaugural direct flight between Algiers and Abuja today, Sunday. The new route aims to enhance diplomatic and economic ties between Nigeria and Algeria. The Algerian Secretary General of the Ministry of Transport, Mr. Jamaluddin Adridi, said that the direct route between Algeria and Nigeria came in line with the instruction of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune.
Air Algérie kicked off the direct route from Algiers to Abuja in line with the instructions of the President of the Republic and the agreement made between the two countries. The Algerian airport is a central airport. It will allow Nigerian students and also Algerian and Nigerian nationals to travel comfortably and directly from Nigeria towards Algeria in a direct flight, which will be followed by a direct route towards Douala, Cameroon.
For his part, the Chargé d'Affaires of the Nigerian Embassy in Algiers, Mr. Alwan Abu Abdesalam, said the direct route will strengthen trade, higher education and sport activities not only between the two countries but also at the African level.
Proving this Air Algérie to be flying Algiers direct flight to Abuja, which will surely be a very great opportunity not just for Nigeria but for the whole of Africa. And it's going to open more routes for trade, for commerce, for changing of student affairs, for sports activities, which will be looking for this opportunity Nigeria and Algeria have established diplomatic relations since 1963, but this is the first time we're having a direct flight.
Let's know that the national company Air Algérie has purchased 16 new planes to improve its services and alleviate tensions on its flights. To Western Sahara now, the Sahrawi President Brahim Ghali has received the UN Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, as part of his visit to the Sahrawi refugee camps. The meeting took place in the presence of the Polisario Front's representative to the UN and coordinator with the United Nations Mission for Referendum in Western Sahara, Mohamed Sidi Omar. During the meeting, President Ghali reiterated the Polisario Front's commitment to the Sahrawi people's legitimate demands and his determination to continue fighting until it wins its case and recover its independence. De Mistura's visit is part of the preparations for his briefing to the Security Council in mid-April. Earlier, the members of the Sahrawi National Council reiterated during a meeting with Mr. de Mistura their meeting or commitment to the demand for freedom, independence, and the completion of sovereignty over the entire Sahrawi territory. The meeting was also an opportunity to examine the concerns raised by the Sahrawi people, linked notably to the difficult situation. And the Polisario Front representative to the United Nations and coordinator with the MINURSO, Mr. Mohamed Sidi Omar, has reiterated the Sahrawi people's attachment to their inalienable right to self-determination and independence. At the end of the meeting with the Sahrawi and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, with the personal envoy of the UN Secretary General, Staffan de Mistura, at the end of his visit to the Sahrawi refugee camps, the Sahrawi diplomat Mohamed Sidi Omar said that discussions focused on the prospects of the UN-sponsored peace process in Western Sahara. President Ghali expressed a commitment to work in collaboration with the United Nations and African Union in order to achieve a just and lasting solution to the Western Sahara question, which is listed by the UN as a decolonization issue. The visit by the UN Secretary General's personal envoy is part of his tour of the region to meet the two parties to the conflict, namely the Polisario Front and the Moroccan occupying power, to discuss the current situation and light of the upcoming briefing that he will present to the Security Council on April 14th. To the Middle East now, several Palestinians, including children, were killed in bombardments carried out today at dawn by the Israeli occupation in Khan Yunis in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And Mariam Bershi has the details.
The news agency WAFA stressed that several other people were wounded in the attack. The Israeli occupying army resumed over 2 weeks ago its military operations in Gaza in violation of the ceasefire enforced last January, causing an unprecedented humanitarian disaster in the besieged enclave. In this connection, UNICEF affirmed that the blockade imposed by Israel was having disastrous consequences on over 1 million children who are deprived of vital aid. Meanwhile, the Islamic Cooperation Organization condemned in strongest words the attack perpetrated last month by the Israeli occupying army against ambulances of the Palestinians' Red Crescent, during which 15 medics and humanitarian workers were killed. In a communique released today, it recalled that targeting systematically and deliberately the UN humanitarian and medical personnel constituted a blatant violation of the international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. The organization called for the setting up of an independent inquiry to be supervised by the UN Security Council to look into the crime perpetrated against medics and all the crimes carried out by the occupying forces against the Palestinian people. In another development, thousands of demonstrators yesterday rallied outside the White House in Washington, D.C. to press for an end to Israel's acts of aggression on Gaza. The demonstration was also aimed at protesting at the arrest of pro-Palestinian students denouncing Israel's war in Gaza in U.S. universities.
And the United Nations Population Fund has called on all political leaders in South Sudan to prioritize peace, stability, and the well-being of those in need of humanitarian assistance as political tensions rise in the country.
The United Nations Population Fund, UNPF, stressed that the current instability threatens to derail the humanitarian response, making it even more difficult to provide essential services to those in need. The agency warned that 2/3 of the population is now depending on humanitarian aid, while funding for essential services is drying up. The statement comes amid growing political tensions in the country after South Sudan's first vice president, Riek Machar, was placed under house arrest and his allies detained. The government accused Machar, who signed the 2018 peace deal with President Salva Kiir that ended a 5-year civil war, of planning rebellion, an allegation denied by Machar's allies. He stressed that the escalating tensions are only exacerbating an already severe humanitarian crisis in South Sudan, where communities face limited or non-existent access to essential health services. The UNPF said that with more than 9.3 million people in need of humanitarian assistance, including 2.4 million women of reproductive age, the lives, health and dignity of women and girls are at stake. The UN agency called on all actors to facilitate unhindered humanitarian access to enable partners to provide the necessary assistance. The UNPF recommended that the international community step up its support for South Sudan by strengthening humanitarian efforts and ensuring that resources reach the most vulnerable populations.
Hundreds of thousands of protesters have gathered in dozens of cities across the United States and Europe to protest against the controversial policies of U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, including the imposition of so-called reciprocal tariffs, the shutdown of federal agencies, and the deportation of immigrants. In the United States, around 6,000 or 600,000 people joined over 1,400 protests across all 50 states under the theme of hands off. And in response to the protests, the White House said in a statement that President Trump will not be deterred from delivering on the promises he made to make the federal government more efficient and more accountable to the hardworking American taxpayers, as it was put by the White House. Protests were also held in European cities such as Berlin, Frankfurt, Paris, London and Lisbon. They also protested against Tesla's owner Elon Musk, who is also close ally of Trump. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and that's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to the international event of the week.
The international event of the week.
The Israeli government announced this week its decision to expand its military operation in the Gaza Strip and to seize large areas of the territory it intends to turn into what it called security zones. The decision came 2 weeks after the Israeli army resumed its bombardment of Gaza in violation of the ceasefire, which has been in force for 2 months. Scores of Palestinians were killed this week in the Israeli bombardments that mainly targeted the southern part of the enclave. According to UNICEF, at least 322 children have been killed and twice as many have been reportedly wounded since the Israeli army launched a renewed offensive in Gaza. Such an escalation came amid new evacuation orders were issued by the Israeli occupying army, forcing about 140,000 to leave their homes in Rafah. The Palestinian population in some areas of Gaza's northern part was also ordered to evacuate. Asked if by announcing such a decision the Israeli government is seeking to impose a fait accompli whereby it blatantly annexes parts of the Palestinian territory in defiance of international law, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi has this to say.
That is exactly what's happening in Gaza. And what is alarming is that the Israelis are establishing these facts on the ground in plain view and in clear violation of international law. Despite condemnation of by the entire world community, just recently the Israeli cabinet tasked the new defense minister with the charge of what amount to forced expulsion and collective punishments of Palestinians, expulsion from their homeland in Gaza. Israel Katz, the new defense minister, framed his mission in a legal framework. According to him, this is based on a new reality that's on the ground. And based on what he's saying, presenting from his perspective a narrative that would encourage Palestinians Palestinians to leave Palestine or Gaza because life is unbearable. While this is a matter of fact, life is unbearable, what the Israelis and Quds doesn't tell us is that life has been made unbearable for the Palestinians because of Israel's genocidal activities and because Israel is attempting to force its way and establishing facts on the ground. What Israel is doing in Gaza aligns practically with establishing facts on the ground as we have seen it for decades in the West Bank and Gaza, and particularly since 1967 and prior to the entire land of Palestine. Under that scheme, the Israeli authorities would condone or authorize the constructions of settlements, outposts, roads on Palestinian land, and military zone, and would later present them as new realities on the ground and push for them these new realities to be included in future or any future negotiation plans. The same scenario is followed today in Gaza, but more alarming. It is down in the open, and as I stated earlier, in plain view of the world, and a clear violation of international law. By doing so, the Israelis are expanding their annexation of Gaza to leave room for building new settlement and return to the pre-2005 era before settlers were evacuated from Gaza. That is the big plan, and the big plan is being achieved or being worked towards its achievement by establishing these facts on the ground.
The Israeli military escalation has raised serious humanitarian concerns. The Israeli airstrikes have resulted in a significant number of civilian casualties at a time when the blockade imposed on Gaza has led to severe shortages of basic supplies, prompting warnings from international aid organizations about a worsening of the humanitarian situation. In this respect, the UN dismissed Israeli claims that there is enough food supplies in the Gaza Strip, noting that the UN Food Programme had to close its bakeries due to a lack of resources, exacerbating food shortages among the population. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, estimated that 90% of Gaza's 2.1 million residents have been displaced with limited access to shelter, food, medical services and clean water. As if the international community would respond to the humanitarian organization's call for an immediate intervention, as Gaza is facing a high risk of famine. Our political analyst Hamoud Salhi had the following.
The inadequate response of the international community and the silence to what the World Criminal Court has documented and issued a ruling as genocide activities in Gaza, and today that applies to the West Bank, is truly incomprehensible. This is despite the fact that international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions prohibit collective punishment and the targeting of civilians and acts of genocide. But much of this has to do with how Western nations, including the United States, have come to accept these atrocities and shield Israel from any international repercussions. Criticism of Israel's action often is muted or not talked about in great details. It is also vetoed in international forums, in particular in the United Nations Security Council. The United States has used and misused its veto multiple times to block resolutions critical of Israel. Along the same side, when we look at how the media portrays, the mainstream portrays the Palestinian, it is usually biased, that doesn't apply equal standards or equal morals when it comes to the Palestinians. The biggest example we've seen is how the Western media portrays the Ukrainian population and the Palestinians. And in addition, when we look at how the Palestinians are treated, portrayed and framed, usually, and this is common, the Palestinian casualties are treated as collateral damage. The Palestinian resistance is viewed as terrorist, and this reinforces the Palestinians do not deserve a life for their dignity. And that sets the stage for this, for a lack of the international community to take a stand against Israel.
As the Israeli army pursued its attacks in Gaza, negotiation resumed this week in an attempt to broker a ceasefire deal. However, there is a cautious optimism that progress could be achieved rapidly as major issues need to be tackled. Past ceasefires have collapsed due to Israel's continued violation, but this time the pressure is higher, with international actors pushing for a long-term solution. Ask if the renewed diplomatic efforts offer a path to peace, or are we looking at another deadlock? Our political analyst Hamoud Salhi commented the issue.
Definitely, the Israelis have no intention on resolving this problem or this war, atrocities, assault on Gaza using a political solution. Let's look at it from two perspectives. One, if we are to start with the newly appointed Israeli defense minister, we know that he strongly believes that the Palestinians have no right to exist. And he has been very clear in his approach in this war against the Palestinians that he's comfortable with collective punishment, genocide, because he believes, according to him, that this military assault would lead to the recapitulation of the Palestinians. And that's a far-fetched belief. On multiple occasions, if we are to add to this, he has made it clear that he has no intention on pursuing a peace settlement, and that he would continue to expand the annexation of Israel in Gaza and engage in military assault on Gazan to force them to leave or face death. His prime minister holds the same views, albeit for different reasons. The PM has clearly failed in every objective he has taken to achieve in Gaza. He has not liberated the hostages, as he claims. He has not defeated the Palestinian resistance, and he has not succeeded in expelling them or having them leave the Gaza. All of that, defeated or not, the main fear of Netanyahu is his political survival. He knows very well if he loses the government, if his government collapses, and if the war is ended, the first thing he would have to do is face the court and explain himself about the charges that have been issued against him, criminal in nature. To that effect, Netanyahu has been very clear and clever. He has continued to go to war, basically to maneuver his way out of jail. Twice last month, as an example, he requested permission to postpone his appearance or appearances in this case before the court under the pretext that he was preoccupied with national security, or as he calls it, the defense of Israel. But in reality, the real reason for Netanyahu, he knows very well if he stops this war, he would have to go to jail. and because the court would find him guilty of the crimes, and for this reason, that this war will continue as long as these variables are still in place.
Let's recall that the military